Clyde. Brian Neubert, well, he's literally fresh off the road. He seems like poor guy's been on the road covering men's basketball. Well, that's the way it is this time of year, I guess. But also fresh from availability with Matt Painter and men's basketball as Purdue prepares for Nebraska. It's still hard to digest, at least for me, and I've read a lot of the stuff that you've written about post Indiana game. You've been covering this for a long time. One of the stranger games I've seen in a long time. Put that into context from your perspective.
Well, it's pretty difficult too, because what happened, how it happened, when it happened, all of it was just so surreal, and it all just happened so fast. I said after the game, it was like straight out of the old WWF, the old when they used to, not that they don't anymore, but when they would script the matches, and there would always be a way for the bad guy to win in the most annoying way possible. That was that. I mean,
Matt Harms.
Matt Harms was public enemy number one in Assembly Hall, and he just like that, game over. And it was just absolutely surreal. And, I wish I had a chance to see how everything unfolded on the floor after the game. But I had to get out into the crowd to get downstairs because we're up on the moon in Assembly Hall and have to get down there in time to make the press conference. So I couldn't just kind of sit and watch. But if I were a player, I would be out of there, right back to the locker room as fast as possible, because that is one of those powder keg types of situations where you could not be more disliked in that moment than Purdue, I'm sure, was. One player in particular, obviously. I mean, it's absolutely surreal ending to a really, really ugly otherwise game.
Yeah, it was funny because watching it on TV, you could see they were probably there another 90 seconds after the game was over, and I was wondering how, and I couldn't make out much of what Matt Harms, he actually celebrated, gathered himself, and then ran into the handshake line as fast as he could. He moved his hair and got in the line, so he did what he was supposed to do. But yeah, that was a crazy environment. And we don't need to focus on a lot, but was there's been a lot made of the IU student chants, and obviously Fred Glass's apology, but was it as audible? Could you hear it as easily from your perspective? Because I didn't hear it on TV at all. So
I could hear it, but I didn't know it was as pervasive as I guess it was. I could hear the people around me, but I didn't know it was everybody else too. But let's be honest here. I mean, this is not necessarily an Indiana-Purdue issue. This can happen anywhere. I mean, this is just, you get 20-year-olds in a building, you get them in an emotionally charged situation. Sports brings the crazy out of people unlike anything on this earth other than maybe politics, the opposite sex, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Stuff can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
It was ugly. It definitely was ugly. It got extremely personal. Whatever it was Matt Harms did after the game ended, whatever it was he might have said at midcourt, it wasn't enough, because if I were his age and that was happening to me and a game ended that way by my own doing, God knows what I would have done. But it probably wouldn't have been pretty or legal. But
no, I thought at least from what I saw, he handled himself pretty well on that.
The funny thing about this is, look, I understand Matt Harms is a demonstrative player. He's an excitable player. But he's the nicest, one of the smartest kids on Purdue's team. And all his crime in this game was falling on the floor a couple times.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't bring it upon himself. This rivalry has had some pretty flamboyant guys who have kind of played the role of heel willingly. I'm thinking of Chris Kramer. I'm thinking of Will Sheehy. Guys who enjoyed it, who actively played that role. All Matt Harms did was fall on the floor a couple times. The technical foul, they say that he confronted Deron Davis. He stepped in his general direction. He looked toward him. I don't know if there was any sort of act of aggression.
Right, I didn't see it.
But he didn't do anything outside of what he always does, that being that sort of excitable, demonstrative player, to bring that sort of disdain upon him. When you're 7'3", everybody sees you. You're the most visible guy in the court. That probably has something to do with it. But what my point was that them kind of singling him out as the guy seemed a little bit misguided in the first place. I mean, it just was sort of unfortunate the way it all played out, that anyone had to be subjected to that sort of thing. And believe me, my sensibilities are not so delicate that I've never heard the F word before.
Yeah.
Or probably used it a few thousand times. But it was just unfortunate that any player out there had to be subjected to that, let alone a player who really did nothing to bring it upon himself.
Yeah, it's interesting because Matt Harm's someone that wants to go to law school, at least a very analytical guy, actually thinks before he does things. He's such a, on the basketball court, he's so, it's all in the moment, and he does, is a passionate, it comes off that way certainly. But yeah, interesting experience, and yet, is it as simple with beating Indiana now, you know, in an ugly game, in a 48-46 game like that? All right, all is well. You win that game. You get out of there alive. It sure beats the heck if you're from a Purdue perspective if you lost that game. Or is this a team that's going through a slump streak, so to speak, winning games but really not playing well? This team being Purdue.
Well, Purdue for the last 2.5 games, in one form or another, hasn't played very well, and especially offensively. And they were so good offensively before that. When you look at the shot selection and just the general state of panic they existed in the second half at Maryland, when you look at the wholesale turnovers against Penn State, which were inexplicable, and then when you look at just the simple fact they couldn't score 50 points on the road against somebody who's lost now 11 of 12 games, just is kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
You could look at it like it's a blip, but then again, 2.5 games in a Big Ten season at this point, that's not a blip. That's a chunk of your season.
15% of the season.
Correct. Yeah. I couldn't do the math in my head so fast. So
2.5 actually isn't 15, but it's 12.5.
But it's a situation where Purdue's got to play better.
Yeah.
Because right now you're tied for first in the Big Ten, and you're tied for first in the Big Ten because you bailed yourself out and won in overtime at Penn State, one of the worst teams in the league, and you just had to survive for dear life against Indiana on the road. Obviously, Indiana's a different animal. It's never easy to win there. But Purdue has kind of lived dangerously here through the course of this Big Ten season. And as I said after the Indiana game, you know, you don't necessarily win Big Ten titles by beating Michigan State and Michigan and the other teams in the Big Ten race. You win Big Ten titles by playing your worst game of the season on a Tuesday night on BTN against whoever and then winning anyway.
Yeah.
You win Big Ten titles by stealing games like you did against Indiana on Wednesday? Tuesday. Thank you.
It's Thursday. We're screwed up.
Purdue has been able to sidestep the landmines that cost you
agreed.
Big Ten titles more than they've had to win the big games that also can win you Big Ten. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean,
I'm just saying Purdue has not
I agree.
suffered that devastating loss that they did last season when they went to Wisconsin.
Which
Correct.
is a game. That game. This
worst game of the season by a mile.
Kind of reminded me of that in some ways. It was just such a. It just seemed so off the page.
Right.
But yeah.
The good news was that Indiana was even worse.
Yeah.
And that's just the simple benefit of the fact that Purdue played a broken team right now.
27% from the field from Indiana. Purdue not much better. 31% or 32% from the floor. All right, so basketball is about reinvention and winning tournaments or going deep in whether it be the Big Ten tournament or the NCAA tournament. Purdue will need to reinvent itself in some ways, or what? What do they have to do? I mean, is it just get a grip, so to speak, offensively? Or is this a flaw that they're just going to have to somehow hide from now to the end of the season in terms of how Purdue's playing right now?
They have to take better shots.
Simple.
I mean, you have to stick to what got you here. And I understand Purdue, the way Purdue is constructed this season, is going to have X number of you only live once type shots every game. But they've got to keep it within reason. And, you know, Carson Edwards is going to have games where he's not on, so to speak. When those games occur, 4 of 17 looks a lot better than 4 of 24.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can cut out some of the shots that you take when you're hot, but you maybe pass up when you're not hot, you know. But that being said, look, we've said all along, aggressiveness is what has made Carson Edwards what he is. You are living and dying with Carson Edwards, aggressive and aggressive only. That is him. He's not changing.
Yeah. Not going to change.
If you give Purdue the choice for him to change or not, it would probably err on the side of, well, if he could just modify slightly as opposed to changing wholesale. The aggressiveness is what made him what he is. It's been a big part of what's gotten you here. It made him an All-America last season, helped win you a lot of games the last couple of years. You just like to see it every now and then reined in ever so slightly. But Purdue's got to take good shots. Purdue's obviously got to keep taking care of the basketball. And Purdue's just got to stick to what got it here. It had showed quite a bit of offensive savvy through the course of the season up until these last 2.5. It had done an unbelievable job taking care of the basketball. It had achieved some offensive balance with Travion Williams. Purdue needs Travion Williams back at 100% too. He doesn't look 100% the last couple of games. Obviously, the illness factors into that, but also, he's due for that freshman wall that most guys hit halfway through the season. It just turns out his halfway point of the season was his starting point. So you sort of wonder where he is kind of from a conditioning standpoint, whatever else. But Purdue just has to be better offensively, and they have to keep being solid on defense. Obviously, that's a lot of stuff I just mentioned, but the biggest point offensively is just for Purdue to stick to what got it here.
Purdue will enter on Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. In Lincoln, a team that's wounded at best, desperate certainly, head coach under fire. They just get absolutely pounded by Penn State on Tuesday night as well. But yet a team that for 30 minutes in Mackey Arena was very, very competitive. So where are the landmines Saturday afternoon for Purdue?
Attention span.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all there is to it. If Purdue just goes out there, jacks shots, and misses shots, that's going to get dicey. If Purdue's not locked in, as they say, defensively, Nebraska's capable. I mean, they have one of the better, more talented scorers in the league in James Palmer. He's not having a great year, but by his standards, I should say. But they have guys. They have Glenn Watson. They have Thomas Allen, who made 5 threes against Purdue last time.
Fire, yeah.
Won't happen again, most likely, but they are capable. They are capable of sticking with you. They really do struggle offensively for the most part, though, but that's not because of lack of ability. Purdue just has to be focused. I mean, they're on the verge of something here that should bring something even better out of them than they've showed to this point. Purdue is not out of the water here. People are talking all the time about how, this is the easiest path of anybody left in the Big Ten race.
Right.
Easy is relative because there is no easy path. There are user-friendlier paths. And when you look at the records, you look at the fact that 2 of Purdue's last 3 road games are against Nebraska, who can't beat anybody, and Northwestern, who's the worst team in the league. That doesn't necessarily mean the path is easy. And I think Tuesday night underscored that perfectly, because that's one of the games you look at on paper and say they have an easy path, even though those of us who've been around know that there's never an easy win in Bloomington.
No, ever.
And obviously it was not easy. And the fact Purdue's not played very well the last 2.5 games should, reset some things, should kind of refocus some things, however you want to term it.
Yeah.
But Purdue, I mean, it's all right there for Purdue to take. Nobody on this schedule is an easy win, but there's certainly nobody Purdue can't beat and beat handily if they play their best basketball. And Purdue's not playing its best basketball right now. And if it gets back to it, it's going to finish the season strong. Yeah,
that's going to be a storyline that we're going to watch. Okay, well, we will be watching that. Brian will be reporting from Lincoln on Saturday afternoon and before then as well, as we look forward to Purdue's title run, hopefully, if you're a Purdue fan, and that will be an interesting next few weeks, to say the least. All right, we want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, XXX, and, of course, Basham Reynolds for all their support of the show. And I want to thank Gordon and Steve, and I don't know if Chris was back there helping out today, Ryan Schmier as well. We appreciate everybody at WL5 making this happen. If you missed part of the show, Sean Pugh and Michaela Pat also, those interviews will be on the site here probably within about an hour and a half. We'll look forward to having that on. And next week's show will be a week from tomorrow, our usual time, 2 o'clock on Friday. It'll be the 1st of March. Hard to believe from that standpoint, as we'll be talking about Purdue, Illinois, and looking ahead to Purdue, Ohio State for next Friday night's or Friday afternoon show. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks again for watching. And again, if you missed it, we'll have that replay up on the site here before long. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.